The rain had begun before daylight and had not learned to stop. It came cold through the burned trees, silver against the charcoal trunks, gathering on my guard hairs until the weight of it pressed my coat close to my sides. Early autumn usually left scent on the ground, but that morning the rain had washed the forest down to wet stone, cold bark, and the bitter smell of burned soil opening again. I knew the passage ahead, a narrow but firm line above a spruce ravine. Fire had taken the trees above it years before. Below, the living forest had held. Before I reached it, I heard a stone fall. It struck once, then twice, then vanished below the fog. I stopped beneath a black trunk stripped of bark, my ears turned upslope. Rain tapped on dead wood. Water ran in thin threads through the ash-dark soil. Another stone moved, then a handful. The trail was not where I had left it. Fresh black earth had spilled across it in a wide tongue. Burned limbs lay tangled in the mud, their broken centers pale and raw. A trunk had come down recently, its roots lifted from the slope with clumps of wet ash still dropping away. I lowered my nose to the edge of the slide. Beneath the rain was the heavy mineral scent of ground that had not been open an hour before. The mountain was still shedding its skin. I moved along the debris edge, looking for a line beneath it. Living spruce stood below, but between the trees, the earth fell away into slick ledges and roots. One bad step would send me into the ravine without a path back up. I turned toward the way I had come. Mud was already crossing that line too. Not much. A slow run of black water at first, carrying needles, grit, and thumb-sized stones. Then the edge slumped and settled lower with a sound like a wet breath. I stepped clear before it broke. There was no animal in this danger, nothing to circle or outlast. Only water entering burned ground until it no longer held itself together. I climbed a few body lengths higher, where scattered roots broke the surface. They were dead roots, burned and loosened by seasons of snow and sun. Their ends trembled when the mud moved beneath them. A crack sounded above me, not loud, not yet. One of the standing trunks leaned through the fog. For a moment it seemed to pause, still upright though the earth around its roots had shifted. Then the roots tore free. The tree slid, gathering speed, struck another black trunk, and both of them disappeared downhill through the mist. Their fall ended somewhere below with a deep, splintering crash. I stood still until the slope was quiet again. Stillness did not mean safety. It meant the next movement had not started. The route above was open only in pieces: ash, a half-rooted log, stone, then fog. To stay meant waiting beneath timber already falling. To descend meant giving my legs to the ravine. I set my weight forward. The familiar passage was gone. All that remained was a crossing before the slope decided for me. I moved low, with my head level and my paws placed before my weight followed. The first stretch held. Wet ash pressed between my toes, soft but shallow. Then the surface loosened, and my hind paws slid sideways with a sheet of black mud. I found stone beneath it and pushed on. Sound came from everywhere: water, gravel, trunks groaning in windless fog. I could not see far enough uphill to know what would reach me first. A small stone struck my shoulder and bounced past. Then another clipped my foreleg. I broke into a run, not fast enough to lose the ground beneath me, only fast enough to cross the places that were already beginning to fail. The slope dropped beneath my left hind paw. For an instant I was moving with it, paws cutting through mud that would not carry me. I threw my body uphill and caught the far side of a fallen trunk. Its lower half was buried in wet earth. Its upper limbs made a broken cage above the slide. The ground behind me released. It did not roar at first. It folded. Black soil, stones, roots, and branches moved in a heavy sheet. A trunk appeared through the fog, struck another snag, and turned as it fell. I pressed against the buried log, trying to keep its wood between my body and the falling debris. The second impact drove the log sideways. It caught me across the ribs and flank and forced me into the mud. The air left my chest without a sound. For a moment, I could not pull it back. Wet branches crossed over my shoulders. Earth pressed along my legs. Pebbles and burned splinters ran past my muzzle into the gray below. I kicked once and found nothing firm. I twisted toward the space beneath two snapped limbs. My side burned when I turned. The pressure shifted just enough. I pulled my forelegs free, then my hindquarters, and crawled through as the mud closed over the place where my chest had been. I did not take the line I had chosen. It had vanished below a moving wall of black soil. I went sideways, across sharper stone, away from the falling trunks and away from the passage I knew. Each breath returned narrow and hard. The pain lay deep along my side, not open to the air, but inside every step. Behind me, more wood fell. I kept moving because pain could be carried. The slope could not be argued with. Living spruce reached over me below the burn line. Water dropped from needles instead of hissing on bare earth. Under them lay moss and brown needles rather than ash. I stepped onto it and nearly folded when my side tightened. I stayed standing and held my ribs away from the steepest turn, breathing in short pulls until I could take another step. From the edge of the spruce, I looked back. The crossing had become a wound of wet black earth. Trunks lay stacked in angles that had not existed before the rain. The narrow trail that once carried my scent along the ravine was buried under mud and burned wood. Water already flowed across it, smoothing the broken ground as if no feet had ever passed there. I could have waited for the rain to end. I could not make that route solid again. I had not traveled that side of the ravine. Its wind carried wet needles and old wood, but nothing that told me where the ground would lead. I moved carefully, protecting my side. The bruised ribs made climbing costly. A fallen branch I would once have cleared in a bound forced me to step over it, slow and stiff. I listened for pursuit out of habit, then understood there was nothing behind me that needed teeth. Only the slope, only gravity, only the route I no longer had. Under the living trees, the rain weakened, dropping from branch to branch into the dark needles below. I stopped where the ground leveled enough to stand without leaning into pain. My breathing was guarded, but it came. That was enough for the moment. The burned slope was hidden now, except for gaps between the trunks. Through one of them, I could see fog sliding over the open scar. The place I had crossed was already becoming indistinct in the weather. Then came one last crack. It was deeper than the others. Final only because I was no longer beneath it. A tall black trunk leaned out of the fog and fell across the old passage. Its branches struck the slide below, then disappeared behind rain and spruce. I turned away from it. The trees ahead carried no memory of my path. My side ached with every careful breath, and the rain had taken the easy ways of knowing what lay ahead. But the ground beneath the spruce held. I entered it slowly, leaving the black timber behind me in the fog. Some trails are not abandoned by choice. Some are taken from you while you are still crossing them.